Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And a very good evening to you. This is Newsline Live. Sorry about the sort of awkward delayed start. However, the public are obviously feeling challenged. They're feeling desperate, and they clearly are feeling frustrated, and they've decided to vent their feelings, their anger and all that by taking to the streets. The Newsfirst primetime news will no doubt cover that. But on the program tonight, instead of talking about the problems, of which there are several, we thought we'd invite an economist, no better than from the Department of Economics at the University of Colombo, and ask Dr. Priyanka Dunasingh as to how the people can cope. What can the people actually do, apart from venting in public and taking to the streets and screaming themselves hoarse, or in some cases silent vigils with, candles and so on. These are silent protests. Very good evening to you, Dr. Priyanka Dunasingh.
Good evening.
Now, Doctor, we all know the problems. There are gas queues, kerosene queues, petrol queues, diesel queues. There's an absence of diesel. Now, instead of the cars being queuing up, you get the little, the jerry cans being queued up. But the people's frustration is immense. I wonder when it's going to all snap, but that's another thing. What can the people do? We know, I think most people understand that we are not going to solve the dollar crisis anytime soon, and that there are alternatives, and the people, what do they care? They care only about a few things. They care about the quality of their life, right? And they want to be able to feed their children, take them to school, and so on and so forth, and try to lead a normal as possible life, even if it may not be in the fast lane. So what can, as an economist, Dr. Dunasingh, what is your advice to people? How can they cope with this tragic economic situation?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for inviting me for
the pleasure.
Program, and I think very good. It is really a good decision to focus on the area where that the people could basically cope up with the situation. Certainly, we have to discuss why we went wrong and what really affected to this situation, and related things, and even the people should certainly protest against what is going on, in particular lack of decision making or delays in decision making. At the same time, it is certainly important that people focus on through which means they could certainly cope up with the situation. There are few areas where that people could focus on at this moment, even if the the possible actions are very much limited. One of them is to manage the resource, whatever the resource that they have at the moment. We know that in particular the poor people, their level of income is very low. At the same time, now given the higher inflation prevailed during the last 1.5 years time, now purchasing power of the income has declined. Yet I think they need to prioritize the expenditure areas, in particular cut down unessential areas, such as I can name few things, but I think the people themselves can certainly recognize and clearly define what are the areas that they can.
So how can the people improve their quality of life in the context context of this foreign exchange crisis that we're having?
Certainly at this moment, I mean, the improvement in quality of life requires certain level of income increase. So at this moment, it is certainly difficult for us to think in the short run that we get you know,
an increase in salary.
Increase in salary. I think people can, but one thing is people can reallocate some of their expenses to the areas that really need, in particular the food and maybe the education and health and related areas, while cutting down some of the expenses like alcohol in particular when it comes to low income categories. I think sizable share of their income get into the alcohol and related product. That is one of the area. And also the communication, we know that for the entertainment purposes, and maybe for they do not care that much of sometimes some cases the expenses on communication they keep just calling and all. And at the same time I think that people should engage in activities whenever and wherever possible to increase their income, maybe in monetary terms or maybe in kind. For example, if they can engage in certain production activities such as home gardening, that is one way through which they can support for their own consumption. And at the same time, with respect to the middle income people, I think they must seriously think about cutting down the private transport expenditure, use of car, motorbike, van and other things on their own for traveling for work. So and all.
They must make a conscious decision to
yes,
do that.
consciously. There are a number of ways. One way is to certainly use the public transport entirely, keeping aside their private vehicle. On the other hand, they can decide, okay, 3 days a week I will travel by my vehicle, or the other days I will use public vehicle, public transport. Like that, there are many ways through which they could think of cutting down some of the expenses, and at the same time they also must focus on enhancing their income earnings. In particular, we know that given the lower level of this female labor force participation, I am sure female can get in and engage in various economic activities wherever, with respect to in line with the skills that they have, what they could do with the skills that they have, and give some support to the main income earner. So those are some of the measures certainly that the household at this moment need to consider. From one hand, to reduce unnecessary expenses and reallocate them for the essential areas, and also enhance their earnings. It is not difficult, it is not certainly easy for them to increase their income at a time when the economy is in crisis, opportunities are limited.
What about selling what you know? You do you know what I mean?
Yes,
sell
definitely.
What you know.
Definitely, you what I tried to basically explain by using around 5 minutes, you basically summarize it with one term: sell what you know. I think that is exactly what we need to encourage people to get in. It is really difficult to pinpoint, okay, these are the activities people should engage, and these are the areas where they need to focus and enhance in their businesses and all these things. But when you say sell what you know, I think that really summarize the skills and the other resources that they have, they need to use and enhance their income earning capacity. Certainly, yes.
And also, I suppose there is a need to develop yourself personally, personal development, and maybe that is to learn another skill, and there's plenty of opportunity. What's your take on online education, online teaching you online? It's usually free.
Yes, I think that is certainly a very good opportunity at the moment, because with the prior to the economic crisis, actually as a society we basically got a very good we got experience in doing things online, not just the education but other things as well. I think this certainly could use maybe even some of the people to consider maybe doing tuition online, maybe doing consultancies online, maybe even the data entry online, and various other things are there, and at the same time people themselves can learn and enhance their skills. And I think generally that if you look at the Europe and developed countries, most of the young people engage in improving their skills during the economic recession. The reason is that during that time they know that the chances are very limited in finding suitable jobs, so they feel like, okay, now we need to improve our skills, maybe language, maybe the other related qualification, they acquire them. And at the time that the economy get pick up and when the opportunities are available, they certainly can enhance their employability. So that is one of the area that in particular the youth need to consider at this moment, rather than hanging around without expectation or hope, and maybe planning for go abroad. I mean, all these are good, but at the same time need to focus on enhancing their skills, so that economy will not stay forever at this in this mode. Certainly it will take time, but it will certainly bounce back. By the time they certainly can be employable.
Well, and what about are you able to give sort of specific or advisories to different age groups? So let's say somebody is in the 18 to 25 year group. How would they sort of improve their personal development?
I think this personal development, as I see, they need to engage in the society. One of the issue in particular during the last 2 years, they witness limited opportunities in engaging in various social activities, social functions. So I think it is essential that they explore opportunities to engage in the society and learn from others, in particular developing networks, because they may say that they have this number of people in Facebook and this number of people in their WhatsApp group and all, but there
must be real network.
Yes, real network, and also real when you get more experience, more exposure into the society, that is very useful in maybe starting up their own initiatives on maybe entrepreneurship and other various other things. I think that is one of the area, and also they should not in particular look at shortcuts. I think one of the biggest issue with our young generation is that they look for shortcuts. They want to get buy a car, buy a land, buy a house, and in a very short period.
In a hurry.
In a hurry, and because of how they try to do, they try to focus on the what we call easy type activities. As we know, easy come, easy go. I think they will not stay with you, but I think it is important that they invest in education, invest in social capital, and gradually build their career, because you will stay 40 to 50 years in the job market.
But so in all this, whilst we are encouraging people to broad base their economic avenues, including get a part-time job maybe, and so on. Whilst we're doing that, are we to ask the sovereign people of Sri Lanka to forget about their legislators who are, enjoying and living it up? They've got their fancy vehicles, they've got their, how they get fuel only God knows. Because honestly, God knows that answer. I don't know, and the public don't know. So are we to forget them and ask the public just to tighten their own belts?
No, certainly at this moment it is very clear now we have ended up in a crisis due to failures, not just the politician but also the people. At the end of the day, people elected them. So this government, even the previous government, and if you go back and see why people elected, they were motivated with their own private agendas. The people. Now you must not look at the people as innocent, and people are very,
But aren't they innocent, the people?
They are innocent.
They're long suffering.
No,
They're long
suffering, all are true. But when you say define the people, you try to always get the people living in a remote area.
Yeah.
But if you broad base and make it, people are around us. No, I mean that include.
There's more people out there than there are people in Colombo.
Yes, definitely. But they were motivated actually with various personal benefits that we should not forget, and maybe to get land, maybe to get their kids to admitted to a popular school, maybe to get a job, maybe to do various to get some benefits. Now they have elected the people who are suitable for that particular
or they think they're suitable.
Yes.
On that note, Dr. Dunasingh, lest Harshna gets annoyed with me, it's time for a break. We'll see you on the other side.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
TV1 Rasvidena Jivite.
Protesters gather at the President's office, demand answers to present crises. Askiri Anunayaka displeased over present state of affairs. No end to people waiting in line for fuel and gas. Finance Minister travels to India with the hope of obtaining loans to purchase fuel and medicine. IMF representatives meet President. Cabinet approval to obtain technical assistance.
TV1 Rasvidena Jivite.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. I'm in conversation with Dr. Priyanka Dunasingh, who is of course from the Department of Economics at the University of Colombo. Dr. Dunasingh, thank you very much for being on the program again. Do you know when the public vent their frustration and they take to their streets, and I saw them today, they, at the end of that rally, they were tired, they were hot, they were bothered, but they were walking back purposefully, and they meant to mark their presence today. Do you think it helps?
Yes, certainly help. I think we must let people an opportunity to release their frustration. That is a very good, I think, sign in a democracy, where people, when they are express their anger, when they express their dissatisfaction with what is going on, certainly it will limit people from taking other violent options. If you restrict them, and if you try to restrict that anger, what will happen? They will take up, other various other avenues. What we have witnessed in 1988, 1971. I think we must certainly, one thing, very good thing is to listen them, but at the same time it is important that we basically let people to agitate, let people to engage in protest. It is a must in a democracy.
Right. But does democracy make way for inconvenience? Because some people are inconvenienced.
Yes, certainly inconvenience itself is a